Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video, doing GWV Sunday Round Up. For today's second video, so it's going to be your usual eclectic Sunday afternoon mix of this and that. We're looking at things like sea surface temperature anomalies, the Southern Oscillation Index, Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, and the weather for the next week to 10 days as well. Signs of a change coming up in around 5 or 6 days' time. We may well be losing these very warm and dry conditions that we've got at the moment, and be replacing them with something quite a lot cooler and quite a lot more unsettled as well, potentially, in around a week or so's time. So I'll get on that for you very shortly. Just say that the final analogs update for the spring of 2019 has been released. It's here on the homepage at GWV right now. Will be placed on the spring updates page later on this afternoon, probably around 7, 8 o'clock this evening. There'll be a written summary that goes with it as well, so you can watch the video on demand if you want, and you can also have a read of that written summary. It's a bit of an ENSO slash QBO special this week, so have a look at that and see what's going on. Spring forecast will be released in just 1 week's time on Sunday the 3rd of March. We'll probably have a final ensembles watch for this winter tonight, and then I think we'll rest those for a little while. Right, so let's get on with the GWV Sunday Round. I'm going to start off with sea surface temperature anomalies. So this is how things were looking in terms of sea surface temperature anomalies when we did last week's GWV Sunday Round Up. 3 areas of interest. We've got the Equatorial Pacific Ocean, the ENSO region just here. Got the Northern Pacific up there, and we've got the Northern Atlantic over there. So that's how things were looking last week. This is the very latest in terms of sea surface temperature anomalies. Let's deal with the ENSO region first of all. So I think we have seen more warming of the ENSO region over the past week. That was the situation through the ENSO region last week. This is the situation now, I think, particularly over in the eastern side of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. We have seen warming over the past week. I'll explain the reason for that in a moment, but there has been definite warming of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean in that eastern part of the ENSO region over towards Peru. Further north in the Pacific Ocean, that was how things were looking last week. This is how things are looking now. So perhaps a little bit of a cooling has taken place in this northeastern part of the Pacific Ocean, just here over towards Alaska and Canada and North America. That sort of area possibly is getting a little bit cooler compared to last week. So we may be starting to shift towards a colder pattern up there. It's normally quite a cold place. Over the past few years we have had relatively warm sea surface temperature anomalies up there for some reason, but historically it's actually quite a cold part of the ocean, so maybe things are going to be getting colder there over the coming few weeks and months. In the North Atlantic, that's how things were looking last week. This is how things are looking now. Very little change. I think looking very, very stable in the North Atlantic. Still a bit warmer than average through the tropics, but not warming up any further, just quite stable. And then further north, the central part of the North Atlantic Ocean, relatively mild there. And then it's still a bit colder than average, really, to the south of Greenland. That's been ongoing for several months. But not cooling down any further, just staying generally a little bit on the cooler side. In the shallow waters of the Mediterranean and the Bay of Biscay, generally still a little bit below average with sea surface temperature anomalies there. That's a reflection of the relatively of a relatively cold southern European winter that we've had. Expect those sea surface temperature anomalies to be warming up very soon. They're shallow waters, they're prone to rapid temperature change with the weather. It will be starting to warm up across southern Europe, of course, very soon as we move into the Mediterranean spring and summer season. So those sea surface temperature anomalies will rapidly start to increase quite soon. The reason that we've had this warming of the ENSO region is down to the Southern Oscillation Index. So this is, or the pattern that's causing the Southern Oscillation Index. It's just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state. We're looking at the atmospheric state in the Southern Pacific Ocean. It's measuring air pressures between Darwin in Australia and Tahiti in the South Pacific. When the SOI goes into a negative phase, the atmosphere is in an El Nino state, and through February have seen a big drop in the SOI. So this is from the Bureau of Meteorology. This red line here is showing the 30-day average for the SOI. So at the beginning of February, SOI was actually around neutral, around here, but look how this red line is just dropping away. So down to around minus 12 up to the 24th of February. Which is quite a negative number for the 30-day average for the SOI. This tells us we have been through a prolonged period of quite dramatic negativity of the SOI just recently. So these numbers are confirming that. These are the daily SOI returns. They are to be confirmed, but they're normally pretty accurate with the early assessment, if you like. So, for example, 15th of February here had the SOI at minus 13. 17th of February had the SOI minus 29. 18th of February had it at minus 35. 19th of February had it at minus 43. Extreme negativity of the Southern Oscillation Index. 20th of February minus 38, and over the past couple of days it's just started to become a little bit less negative. So the 23rd of February is at minus 15 and the 24th is at minus 8.5. That is still solidly sort of negative SOI territory though, and it's still a reflection or it's still the atmosphere in the Southern Ocean reflecting El Nino. So we've been through a very strong burst of negativity of the SOI, which tells us that the atmosphere has been very much in a strong sort of El Nino type pattern, and this will drive the ocean to increase those warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies. So you kind of like need to get a proper El Nino or La Nina event going. You need the atmosphere and the ocean to couple with one another. When they do, the thing kind of like snowballs. So the sea surface temperature anomalies will get warmer and the atmosphere will get more strongly El Nino, and that then will drive the sea surface temperature anomalies to get warmer still. And that's how these events kind of like spiral into sometimes major events. So we have been through a very pronounced burst of negative SOI condition. That tells us that the atmosphere has been very strongly into an El Nino setup, and that is what's driving the increase in the sea surface temperature anomalies with that El Nino signal across the equatorial Pacific Ocean at the moment. Normally we'd be reverting back to ENSO neutral at this point as we go into the spring. So it's quite unusual what's happening here. We will have to keep a close eye on what's going on over the next couple of months. This is how things are looking in terms of European and Russian, so Eurasian, snow cover from the NIC website. We can see that we have still got snow cover across eastern parts of Europe. It is rather patchy, but the snow cover is still there across eastern Europe. Of course, all of Russia is still covered with snow. Most of Scandinavia still looks snow covered as well, away from those more southern areas. But across central western Europe, it does look pretty grim for snow cover. So anywhere from around Germany eastwards basically is devoid of snow, except over the mountainous areas. There is obviously still plenty of snow over the Alps, but away from mountainous areas, from Germany back into west of Europe, it is generally snow-free now, with snow cover generally more in this eastern and southeastern part of Europe. This is how things are looking with solar activity. I haven't got the solar tracker today. We're giving that a rest. It will be back next week. But the solar disk on our side of this today from solarham.net is spotless. There are no sunspots at all on the solar disk. So we've had over 2 weeks now of no sunspots, and obviously very quiet time with the solar disk. We are at solar minimum now, so we can expect these extended runs without any sunspots at all. And it may go on for a month or two. It is possible when you get solar minimum that you can get several weeks and even a couple of months without any sunspots being recorded. So very, very quiet sun. Obviously solar activity is at very low levels and expected to remain at very low levels for the next 3 days at least. I want to just throw this in. We've used this chart for the final analogues update for the for the spring. So I said we'd release our final analogues update for spring 2019 earlier on today. It's a bit of a QBO special as well as including ENSO 2. This hasn't been updated around a year. This is from the University of Berlin. This is depicting all of the QBO, Westerly and Easterly phases going back into the 1950s. So, for example, we see here back to the 1950s at the top of the chart. So the grey areas are where we've got westerly QBOs, and the white areas are where we've got easterly QBOs. So that's a westerly QBO just there, covering the period from late 1954 through 1955 to early 1956. The white area is where we've got an easterly QBO, and that's kind of like from the middle of 1956 through to the middle of 1957. Then another westerly QBO just there from sort of mid-1957 to sort of late 1958. And then another easterly QBO from late 1958 into most of 1959. And so that's how we go along with the QBO. It's a very regular waxing and waning of the zonal westerlies. Essentially, when you're in a westerly QBO, the zonal westerlies are strengthened. When you're in an easterly QBO, the zonal westerlies are weakened considerably. So it's primarily something that we look at importantly for winter. Because when the westerly QBOs are strengthened, it's more of a zonal, mild type signal for the winter. When the QBO, the zonal westerlies are weakened, and you're in an easterly phase of the QBO, then that, of course, is potentially a colder signal for the winter. But it's quite important to look at it at other times of the year as well. If we come down to the latest that we've got, so this hasn't been updated for around a year for some reason at the University of Berlin, but they are updating it now, and it confirms that we're into westerly QBO now. So this is 2018, this is 2019. You see this grey area descending down through the atmosphere. Got the levels of the atmosphere on the side there, so that's the top of the atmosphere at 10 HPA. That's down on the surface of the Earth. So we can see this grey area descending down through the atmosphere down to like 50 HPA now, between 30 and 50 HPA, which is the boundary of the atmosphere where weather is taking place. This tells us that we've gone into westerly QBO. So this winter that we've had has been a strengthening westerly QBO winter. It's probably one of the things that's responsible for this winter being really quite a mild winter across the UK and across much of Northern Europe as well. I think the westerly QBO, or the developing westerly QBO, is one of the reasons for that. So now they've started updating this at the University of Berlin. We will be keeping a close eye on this chart. This grey area will develop further over the next few months, and it'll look something like that eventually. And then, of course, later, towards the end of the year, into 2020, that's when the easterly phase of the QBO starts. So this will kind of like be a westerly QBO. This will be easterly QBO just there in 2020. The QBO should be very reliable. It should almost be like a pulse or a heartbeat that is constant and continuous. We did have the situation through 2015-16, when that super El Nino was taking place, where the easterly QBO failed. You can see that just here with this large and very long grey area depicting the westerly QBO that went on for like 2.5 years from its beginning back in early 2015 through to 2016 and even into 2017. So this white area just there is where we have the failure of the easterly QBO. But that's really unusual. That doesn't happen very often at all. In fact, it had never happened before, we didn't think, at that point, certainly back to 1950. So we can expect the easterly QBO to begin towards the end of the year and then strengthen through the course of 2020. We'll be keeping a close eye on that chart in the next few weeks and months. Arctic oscillation observed and forecast chart is looking like this. So the black line tells where we've been with the Arctic oscillation. Red lines at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the Arctic oscillation to go. Up to around the 1st of February, this winter was a negative AO winter generally. We did have a few short periods of positivity of the Arctic oscillation, but overall up to around the 1st of February this was a negative Arctic oscillation winter. The Arctic oscillation is just an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state over North Pole. It's not driving anything, just tells you what the atmosphere is doing, similar to the SOI in a lot of ways. So when you're in a negative Arctic oscillation, you're going to have high pressure blocking up over the North Pole. When the Arctic oscillation, though, is in its positive phase, you'll have low pressure up over pole. And since the 1st of February, almost to the exact day of the 1st of February, we've been seeing the Arctic oscillation trending up into positive territory. So we are now in a strongly positive phase of the Arctic oscillation. And we're forecast to stay in a strongly positive phase of the AO as we move through into March. That's the beginning of March just there. You see the GFS ensembles are generally keeping the Arctic oscillation in a positive phase through to the 2nd week of March. Now, there are a few outliers, a couple of outliers there, but are going more towards the negative side with the AO. But generally, Arctic oscillation is trending positive. So we've entered into extended period of positivity of the AO. These indexes, be they the AO or the NAO, they tend to move in blocks of 2 or 3 months. So we can probably expect the AO to stay positive through, certainly through March, possibly even into April as well, which is a signal for a strengthened westerly flow. As we see at the moment, though, that doesn't necessarily mean it'll be wet, just means that you're going to have strengthened high pressure through the Azores. But if that high pressure is ridging into Europe and into the UK, then actually at this time of year you can get unusually mild and even warm weather, and that's what we've got right now. North Atlantic oscillation is the same idea. So the black line here tells where we've been with the NAO, red line's at the end where the GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to go. Throughout this winter, the NAO has generally been in its positive phase, so this tells us that the Azores high has been pretty strong through this winter, and also we've had low pressure close to Ireland, strengthening the westerlies across the Atlantic. Where we are right now is just there, so we are just on the positive side of neutral. The GFS ensembles are forecasting the NAO to stay positive, really, over the next couple of weeks going into the 2nd week of March. So we got both of the indexes here, the AO and the NAO, in their positive phases. This is obviously a strong signal for strengthened westerlies as we're moving into March. GFS upper air temperature and precipitation ensembles looking like this. We're looking at Carlisle today. So this is the latest suggested location on our list of suggested locations for this section of the video. The red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Carlisle. So pretty warm at the moment. I mean, we're way above average. Look at that. We're going to see temperatures increasing even more actually over the next couple of days. The peak of the temperatures looks like it's going to be around Monday, Tuesday, after which we slowly drop the temperature down. It takes quite a while. It's not going to be a dramatic fall in temperature, just day by day, shaving a couple of degrees off the temperature until we get into the 1st week of March, this period just here, where we've finally gone back to average with the upper air temperatures. And it looks like we stay around average, really, as we go through into the 2nd week of March. So quite a drop in temperature, but only going back towards average from a very, very high sort of starting point. And much more unsettled as well, so we've got a lot of dry weather coming up over the next few days, but from around the turn of a month, that's the 1st of March just there, from around the turn of a month, we have got regular precipitation spikes coming through, so increasingly unsettled and cooler is the signal as we're going into March, as the westerlies power up, the jet stream powers up, and we start to bring low pressure in from off the Atlantic. It's a pretty strong signal. I'm still a bit dubious about how unsettled this is going to be and how long it's going to last. But you have to say that it's a very strong signal from the GFS ensembles to not only be turning quite a lot cooler, but also to be turning much wetter at Carlisle. And that's representative of many parts of the country, I think, as we're moving into March. Temperature anomalies from the 24th of February to the 4th of March, much milder than average, warmer than average temperature anomalies still. not just for UK, but for most parts of Europe as well. Precipitation anomalies still drier, drier than average, but not quite as dry as we've seen on these charts for several days. So most parts of the UK still coming out drier than average, but it does look just slightly more unsettled for parts of Northern England and over towards Ireland as well. I will expect these charts to trend cooler and wetter in the coming week. We'll keep an eye on them every day in the coming week, and I would expect the trend will be cooler and wetter as we move through the week. If you wonder where winter is, there it is. It's in North America, so temperature anomalies from the 24th of February to the 4th of March for much of North America looking very, very cold. We're down to kind of like, I think this is Fahrenheit, so we're down to 20 Fahrenheit below average to these Midwestern northern states. So severely cold there in the north of America going up towards Canada, and also in the northwest as well, which is quite unusual. Pacific Northwestern areas of America tends to be one of the milder places in winter. Somewhere like Seattle has a very similar climate to our own in the UK, actually. We're in the we're sort of next to the Atlantic there, next to the Pacific, so we do have quite similar climates, but not this week. They're much colder in the northwestern part of America in the week ahead. The south and southeast America does look quite mild down there, but much of the states looking cold, very cold, or even severely cold. Precipitation anomalies look quite dry down in the far south and southwest, so in places like Texas and going back towards Southern California looks quite dry there. Further north, though, looks much more unsettled. So not only is it cold in this northwestern corner, it's also unsettled. I assume there must be quite a bit of snow going on in this northern and northwestern part of America. Back close to home is how the GFS is looking for Wednesday. We've got high pressure centred to the east of us, bringing up these balmy southerly winds. So the winter heat wave continues through to the middle of the week, but from around Thursday, Friday onwards, the high pressure starting to decline. Takes a while, so on Friday it's still ridging into the southern part of the country anyway, at 1,030 to 1,025 millibars, but it is turning more unsettled out to the northwest. It's next weekend that we break the low pressure through from the Atlantic. High pressure collapses, sinks down into southern Europe, and back come the westerlies and areas of low pressure, bringing wet and windy weather. And this takes us through to the following week, so we're moving up towards day 10, looking quite unsettled. This is Wednesday the 6th of March, day 10, high pressure down to our southwest, low pressure out to the northwest. We're in this pretty strong Atlantic driven flow. The GFS midnight run is strengthening the high pressure across France again, though, as we go into the second week of February. We're trying to get a bit of ridging back in, but generally still quite flat, generally still quite westerly, with more areas of low pressure coming in from the Atlantic. So that's typical March weather, really. Unsettled at times, showers and longer spells of rain, fairly strongish winds, and temperatures probably quite close to average. So it's nothing overly dramatic, it's just quite a big change from the weather that we've got right now. But where we've got right now is very unusual and in a lot of ways very abnormal. This is the midnight parallel GFS run, so again we've got high pressure across central parts of Europe, bringing up these balmy and warm southerly winds on Wednesday. The high pressure gradually declining as we go into the end of the week, but it's really next weekend that the Atlantic is breaking through, bringing bands of rain in from the Atlantic Ocean. Showers and longer spells of rain, looking much more unsettled as we go beyond day 10. Low pressure continuing to drive in. That low pressure on more of a southerly track, so there's some cold air wrapped around that. That might bring something a bit wintry to the northern part of the country on the 10th of March, but it's a very long way out. I think the basic scene is just cooler and more unsettled as we go into the second week of March. That's as far as we go to Tuesday the 12th of March, and it looks really quite unsettled. 6 o'clock run of the GFS has been updating, I've been speaking, so again we'll just have a quick look at that. Wednesday, warm southerly winds, mainly dry conditions into the end of the week, still basically hanging on to high pressure, but it's weakening. It's next weekend that the Atlantic breaks through, looking quite wet and windy actually by the time you get through to Monday the 4th of March. Let's run on just a little bit further and see how the 6 o'clock GFS run progress. So again, we're into that westerly flow, sunshine and showers as we move up towards day 10. Quite unsettled. High pressure is ridging in towards France, Spain and Portugal, but we're actually under this westerly, so we're relatively unsettled at that point. It is trying to build this ridge across France, Spain and Portugal, though, as we're moving up towards the second week of March. So again, just how long this unsettled weather is going to go on for remains to be seen. It's trying to have a go at building the ridge back into France. Looks like we remain in those westerly winds, though, as we move into the second week of March. A little bit of a northerly there as we get going up towards the end of this 6 o'clock run of the GFS. But we finish up, look at that, we're up to Tuesday 12th of March, 384 hours away, and we're finishing up building the high pressure back in again. So it is unsettled for the first 10 days of March, but by the 12th of March, we're back under high pressure. That's a very long way out, of course. It's unreliable, but it's just a suggestion that this unsettled weather might not last all that long. We'll have to wait and see. ECM has the winds up from the south on Wednesday, still mainly dry and warm, gradually turning cooler and more unsettled at the end of the week, but it's really next weekend that the Atlantic properly breaks through, bringing bands of rain in from off the Atlantic. As we go into the extended range, we are looking unsettled here. Low pressures driving in from the Atlantic. So up to day 10, the ECM does look pretty unsettled with low pressure taking over in the Atlantic Ocean. Temperatures returning back towards average. This is how temperatures are going to perform over the next week. So tomorrow, really warm day coming up. Temperatures again widely into the mid to upper teens Celsius. You can normally add on a couple of degrees from these temperatures. So they're suggesting maximums somewhere between around sort of 13 to 16 degrees. I expect in reality that will probably be for most of us 15 to 18 degrees tomorrow. Another very, very warm day indeed. That goes on into Tuesday too. It's a little bit cooler across Scotland and Northern Ireland on Tuesday, but for England and Wales, still another really abnormally warm day, and that continues into Wednesday. Now Wednesday we have got 17 being forecast there across East Anglia. If you think that you can add on a couple of degrees, that could get us to 19 degrees across East Anglia on Wednesday. If that happened, that will be very, very close to the February maximum temperature record, which is 19.7, set in 1998. So it's on the cusp there, I think, on Wednesday, but we might get an all-time February maximum temperature record. That's Wednesday, 27th of February. Will that be the day we break the all-time UK maximum temperature record from 1998? We go through to Thursday, and we find that the temperature is beginning to lower. Still very mild, but just shaving off a few degrees on Thursday, and that continues into Friday as well. We're still talking about very mild temperatures Thursday, Friday, but just slightly down on the really warm temperatures of Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. Into Saturday, so notice it's turning much cooler across Scotland and Northern Ireland. By Saturday, temperatures are dropping into single figures, which is where we should be at the start of March across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Temperatures should be in single digits. So temperatures going back to average in the north, still mild down in the south, not as mild, but still mild down across England and Wales. But by Sunday, in a week's time, temperatures have returned back to average then. So for England and Wales, average at the beginning of March going to be around 10, 11 degrees. That's about where you would expect us to be. And for the north, temperatures into single digits, again, where they should be at the beginning of March. And then the following days looking a lot cooler. Actually, as we get towards Tuesday, the 5th of March, we're generally a little bit cooler than average then across England and Wales. Most places have gone down into single digits. And for the north, actually looking quite cold up there. Very, very long time since we've been able to use that word, of course. Not only will temperatures be cooling down in around a week's time, also turning more unsettled. So this is from the weatheroutlook.com. This is the 5-day accumulated precipitation totals from the GFS midnight run. So in the next 5 days, no measurable rain really, except in the very, very far northwest of Scotland. As we go through to the 10-day precipitation accumulated charts, look at that, much more unsettled. We're not talking about anything overly dramatic, but it's just quite a big change that's going to be taking place between days 5 to 10 compared to days sort of 1 through to 5. So more unsettled, particularly so in the north and west. CFS V2 looking like this finally. So these are the 500 millibar heights broken down to week periods. The first week period takes us from the 24th of February to the 2nd of March. The coming week we'll have high pressure dominating the weather, sitting over the UK. Low pressure is in the Atlantic. Jet stream is in that sort of position, so it's going to be dry and warm in the days ahead. But then signs of a change into week 2. This is taking us from the 3rd to the 9th of March. More unsettled, below average heights, low pressure out to the northwest of the country. The high pressure is flattening off and sinking into eastern and southern parts of Europe. That comes a jet stream with winds turning into the west. A more unsettled week then from the 3rd to the 9th of March. Still mild, but more unsettled. And that continues into week 3. This is the 10th to the 16th of March. Below average heights out west of the country, bringing in those westerly winds. So again, you would expect quite an unsettled week there. Showers or longer spells of rain. Winds are driving in from the Atlantic, so there's no problems with temperatures. There's no suggestion of cold weather, particularly just lower temperatures compared to what we've had recently. And then we go through to week 4, which is the 17th to 23rd of March. The ridge is building back up from the south again as the low pressure is being pushed off towards Greenland, Iceland. So this is bringing up very mild, if not warm air from the south and the southwest, and it will be turning quite a lot drier as well, particularly so for England and Wales. This is how March is currently looking with the CFS V2. So this is the 500 millibar height anomaly that the CFS is forecast, actually 700 millibar height anomaly for March. So it's going for quite an unsettled month, actually. Below average heights, low pressure out to west-northwest. Got a strong ridge, though, through the central part of the Atlantic. So we've got a strong Azores high, and that is pushing into much of Central Europe as well. So the jet stream doing something like that. It's an Atlantic-driven month. Probably quite unsettled in the north and west. Probably some dry weather at times in the south and southeast. And temperatures would be pretty mild this March as well. It is going for warmer than average temperature anomalies there, quite substantially so for the UK and most of Europe as well. Coming out with a substantially warmer than average March. Precipitation wise, it's not quite as unsettled as you might have expected, really, with that low pressure out to our west of us, but it is hinting at slightly above average rainfall for western parts of the UK and Ireland, nearer average with precipitation anomalies elsewhere. So it looks like a relatively mild but slightly unsettled month in March. Nothing overly unusual being shown there, but a rather westerly Atlantic-driven month, which is what we would expect to see with this developing QBO, westerly QBO, and also, of course, with the Arctic and North Atlantic oscillations strongly signalled to be in their positive phases. We would expect Atlantic-driven weather to continue into March. If we get the strengthening of the Azores high, then it could actually be quite a warm and, for the south anyway, fairly dryish month. Finally, if you've been enjoying the updates at GWV recently, then can you consider giving us a donation? So this is GWV's PayPal page. So if you'd like to give a one-off donation to GWV, then you can come to the GWV.me PayPal page and sign into your PayPal account and send through a one-off donation. You'll be helping us to pay for our website. You get a shout-out in videos. We'll say thank you very much for your donation, unless you would rather stay anonymous, in which case that's absolutely fine. Just leave a little note with your message saying you'd rather not get a mention. There's also Patreon as well. So this is GWV's Patreon account. We've got 59 patrons. Big thank you to all of our patrons and big thank you to all of our donors. If you would like to sign up and become a patron for GWV, again, you're going to mention in the videos, then you just come to the GWV's Patreon page, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can pledge an ongoing monthly donation. It can be anything from $1 a month upwards. And a big thank you to all of the donors, and a big thank you to all of the patrons for GWV's. Right, that's it for you guys with this Sunday Roundup. Hope you found it interesting and informative. Don't forget to check out the final Spring 2019 Analogues update. That video will be placed on the Spring Updates page later on today with a written summary that you can come back and have a read of, probably around 7, 8 o'clock this evening. I think we'll do a final ensembles watch this evening for this winter, and then, I say, we'll probably be resting those ensembles watches until next winter. So come back for that this evening. But that's all for now. And thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon. Thanks for watching.